thank you indeed for making clear your personal commitment to the kind of work that we're doing using data to drive innovation and understanding. I think it's clear to me, working both in this centre and in other roles as well that you touched on, that Scotland is one of the leading places in the world to do this kind of work and to try and pioneer the kinds of things that we're doing. We have a long and consistent support from the Scottish Government for that kind of work, which is incredibly helpful. And thank you also, Professor Anderson, for your introduction, your opening remarks today. The Centre here has benefited enormously from the support and the funding which comes from the University of Glasgow alongside others, and indeed also benefited hugely from your own personal support for the work that we do, and that's made a real difference to us. So, I have, for my agenda today, I have two broad aims for what I hope we get out of the day. The first, it's a chance to look back at the last 5 years of sweat and toil and struggle. No, the last 5 years of rewarding research and celebrate some of that work. Celebrate the work that we've done and celebrate some of the work we've enabled others to do through our data services and through the services we provide to other researchers. So that's the focus of this morning, and you'll get to hear some of the examples of that from colleagues' work and from other work in the workshops later on. And then it's a chance to look ahead at the challenges of the next 5 years as we celebrate getting refunded as a centre, able to maintain our momentum and capacity over the next period, and therefore to use the afternoon session to reflect on some of the challenges that will face us as we try to turn data and analytics into useful insights to address some of the social and public policy problems we all know about. So that's our agenda for the day, and I'll touch on both those things a little bit more in this introductory session. So I think the Minister's already expressed very well the context in which the Urban Big Data Centre is operating. On the one hand, we face a set of challenges as a society which come in part from technological developments which are changing the nature of our economy and our environment and society. Challenges which public policy needs to address. And to address, they need better insights and understanding of the changing nature of society. And on the other, we have the digital revolution, the explosion in the availability of data to do this work. So the challenges for urban policy making are threefold, really. They're about the changing nature of the economy, the way in which the economic base of the cities is going through quite fundamental reforms, continues to go through large-scale reform. We have lost the industrial base over the last period of decades. We're moving towards a knowledge-intensive, knowledge-based economy. Cities have some advantages in this context. They're seen as the natural home for many of these new creative industries, innovative industries and sectors and functions. They can capture that, but they have to provide the right environment for that, the right skills, the right infrastructure, the right culture and other kinds of environment as well. How do they attract and win these new economic sectors? We face, as we all know, major environmental challenges. For cities, some of these are long-standing, the problems of pollution that come with our large and dense settlements. Others are the problems of achieving a more sustainable way of living, which does less damage to our environment. Cities, again, have some advantages here. They are places which do offer the potential for more environmentally efficient ways of living, and the places which are likely to see the early rollout of new forms of transport and mobility technology. But we have to find ways of making that transition. And then, of course, are the obvious social problems which we find and see most readily in many of our cities. Some of these linked to the changing nature of the economy, which brings lots of well-paid jobs at the top end, but brings a hollowing out in the middle of the labour market, a loss of many of these skilled, semi-skilled, well-paid, stable jobs, which many people relied on. So we have a polarisation of the labour market. And we see it in physical forms, and we see what to many of the outside of a particular neighbourhood looks like reinvestment and regeneration and a kind of positive change to the neighbourhood, but can be experienced locally as gentrification, displacement and dislocation. So many of these things, many of these processes are unwinding in our cities. Lots of opportunities for us, but we have to find ways to realise them. We have to understand then what's going on in our cities. And the digital revolution appears to offer many opportunities for that. We're generating ever vaster quantitative data. As you tweet today, you're contributing to our stock of data and insights into the world. Many of us volunteer to wear tags and send our data and our movement away to private companies, who in return tell us that we're cycling slower this month than last month. There was a headwind, I tell you. And we've also generated new technologies for mining these data, for turning that raw data, much of it unstructured, complex data, into new insights through machine learning technologies and artificial intelligence. So great opportunities. But these technologies, while they themselves may be neutral, many of their uses are not necessarily so. These technologies can be used by local governments as a way of engaging with citizens, consulting with them, empowering them. Or they can be used as a way of observing, monitoring, and controlling. They can be, the access to these technologies is uneven. Some groups have much greater control and resources to exploit them. Maybe these technologies obscure and hide other groups. The technologies themselves can, in drawing on and reflecting inequalities in society, reflect them back to us. There was a story recently about an AI technology for recommending job opportunities to you, which was assuming that women were less interested in high-paid jobs. That was the world it was observing and the data on which it was trained. So these technologies have great potential, but also many, many risks and uncertainties. And that's the challenge then for the Urban Big Data Centre. This is what we are about. We are about responding to these needs for analysis, responding to the opportunity provided by big data and new forms of analytics, and trying to use them in ways which make positive changes, positive improvements in the economy, the society, and the environment of our cities. This is our overall grand mission for the Centre. And we think that to do that, you require 4 different capabilities or capacities within the Centre, and it's what we've been building up over the last 5 years. Some of these are obvious, if you like. Data science capacity. We need the people with the skills to capture this data, to manage it, to wrangle it into the right structures that can be analysed, to analyse it, to produce the visualizations which communicate the results from that work. They need appropriate IT infrastructure, obviously, but also data assets. We need to have access to data. And while we all talk about the vast volumes of data that are around us in the world, much of this data lies siloed away in different organisations, public bodies, private companies. Securing access to that data and having it available to data scientists is itself a significant challenge. We need, but beyond that, beyond the kind of scientific infrastructure and expertise, we also need to harness that with domain expertise, people who understand the various economic, social, environmental challenges of the cities. It's a partnership then between the social scientists and the urban engineers and the data scientists. And we bring to it, I say we, because I'm not the person that does the kind of really fancy data analytics work. I'm hopefully the person that comes with some of the interesting questions. But the domain expertise means that we ask the right questions of the data. And when we get some of the answers back from them, hopefully we also have a more critical understanding of what the value of those insights is. That we can see when they produce something novel, something which challenges existing knowledge, brings new understanding, but when also the old methods and the old data were actually already providing that answer or providing better answers. We have a critical understanding then on the analytics that are produced. We don't take them just because they're shiny and new and big data. We don't take them for granted. So those are the 4 capacities that we've tried to build up in the Centre over the last few years. And my colleagues who are here can talk to you about any number of these different areas. So that's the background to our Centre. That's why I think we need a Centre to bring these different capacities together in order to respond to the challenge we face. This is looking back over the first 5 years. So in that period, we've been funded largely by the Economic and Social Research Council, but with support from the University of Glasgow. We were led for almost all of that period by the founding director, Vonu Thakkaraya, until the summertime, and many of you will have met her and heard her speak over that time. She made an enormous difference to the Centre, was the driving force for the work and the agenda over that period. We were very sad, therefore, to lose her in the summertime as she went on to greater and grander challenges back in the US, and I'm sure she's not short of urban challenges to address in that country. And we've also been a consortium of 7 different universities, led very much by the University of Glasgow, but with partners who are represented here today as well. So when we look back across our work for the first 5 years, we are celebrating the work of all these partners in that process. We had these 4 different roles, but really the data service role was what we were known for and what we were primarily funded for in that period. And so in that role, we were working to open up access to these data, these novel forms of data, for a wide range of researchers who are like us, working as academics, but researchers in the public sector who wanted access to this data, researchers in the private sector as well, where possible. And here you see the benefit of having a data science team who can produce nice infographics for you. This summarises some of the key data and statistics from that period. Our primary focus was the UK. That was what the ESRC were funding us to do, to open up data for the UK cities. But we had users from across the globe, from all the different kind of regions of the world. We worked primarily with academics. They were, again, the core of what we were funded to do. But we also supported uses of this data by people in the public sector, from national government to local government, as well as the third sector. So a whole spectrum of users came to take advantage of the services we offered and to do an amazing array of research with it. And we supplied over 1,000 versions of our data sets covering the diverse sectors of urban life, but focusing strongly on transport, housing, education, which are our dominant themes and areas of expertise. So that's been our primary role, and so you will hear, if you come to the different workshop sessions, you will hear about some of the work that data has enabled, that data service has enabled. We've been also fortunate to have capacity to do our own research alongside the data service. We have, I will spare you all the statistics, but published more than 50 papers in leading scientific journals using and demonstrating the power of novel forms of data. Making contributions which are substantive within the fields of transport, housing and education. Making contributions which are also methodological, enhancing the range of tools that others have to work with these data in the future. So that's a kind of credit to all the various colleagues who are part of this centre. Again, the Minister touched on this. We had a major role providing training and capacity building. We recognise that there is a great shortage of skills to rise to the challenges that we face. We're working with complex data which are large in volume, data which come in a kind of fast streaming pace, data which are hugely varied and required to be prepared, linked, to have the insights or the potential of them extracted and put into a structured form from a very messy, complex underlying resource. So we've put a lot of time and effort into running over 80 training programs, workshops and similar events, which more than 1,000 people from the full spectrum of sectors have attended in the last 5 years. And we're not just about producing the research and sticking it into academic journals, which few outside of academia ever have the time or the pleasure to read. We are very much about trying to then reach out to the public sector, to government bodies, to public bodies and businesses, and work with them to explain what we've done, to identify what their interest in our research are, and to translate that into real change on the ground. We've worked with more than 60 public sector and third sector organisations. This is just a selection of some of those. On the public sector side, they range from our national, or the UK's National Statistical Agency, the ONS, down to third sector organisations like Cycling Scotland of a much smaller scale. We are providing data to these organisations which let them do their own analysis, data they would not otherwise have been able to access. data which may have required not only licensing arrangements and contractual arrangements on our part, but a considerable volume of processing and preparation in order that the data set passed over to them is something they can work with and actually generate insights from. And we've also been working with them in the sense that we providing research which has benefits and uses within their organisation. And again, across the full spectrum of different organisations. We've worked with our own local authority, Glasgow City Council, to look at the pattern of falls that older people have outside the home. We've worked with Renfrewshire nearby to look at the relationships between social care services and health services, trying to understand when small investments in a relatively cheap service like social care can generate cost savings and save lives potentially through cost savings to the National Health Service in terms of reduced admissions to hospitals and potentially save lives in the end as well. So research which we hope has an impact, which we take out then to these bodies and try to understand how they use and encourage the use of. And we work with a wide range of private sector companies. More than 50 businesses have used our services or worked with us on various research projects. And these are just some of those firms. Again, we've worked as data partners, licensing data in some cases, or arranging data sharing agreements with them to bring their data, which is held as a kind of within the private sector, into the sphere where researchers interested in doing research for the public good can have access to it. And we're hugely grateful for many of them for their support on that process. We've also worked with some in more industrial ways, ways which are harnessing the skills of our team to develop new services, develop new data products, to develop new apps, for example. And one of our researchers will be talking later about a project with Travel AI, where we worked to develop on the Catch project. Yang will be talking about this later on, I think. Worked to develop an app which allows transport planners to capture the mobility patterns, the movement and transport demand generated by new housing and other forms of development. Data which then can flow back to inform their decisions for future planning procedures, future planning decisions. But does it in a way which makes potentially quite sensitive data about where you start your journey and where you end, i.e. mostly your home and often your workplace, makes that data not disclosive of individual histories and private details. So a kind of technical challenge and a kind of an analytical and social challenge as well. But the result is a new product which exists, which can be used then by other public organisations. So that was our first 5 years. And we are now very nearly at the end of that period, where our funding for the first phase expires in January. And we have, over the summer, been working very hard to secure funding for the next phase. And we're very pleased. Today's our kind of public announcement of the award. We have secured from the Economic and Social Research Council, jointly funded as well by the University of Glasgow. So again, their support has been hugely important to us. And as we go into the second phase, the message is one of very much of continuity in what the centre is about. We're not making a fundamental change in our mission or our vision for the centre. We're not changing the core capabilities and our capacities. We're maintaining those as we go into the next phase. But we are having some modest reordering of our priorities and our objectives. Going forward, the data service continues, at least for the next until 2020. And we're very happy still to talk to organisations about how they can come and use our data and make advantage of the resources and assets we already hold. But first and foremost, we are now funded, or we will be funded from January, to be a research centre. So the research activities rise to the top. And it's research with a public benefit. It's research where we work with public agencies, work with private businesses to ensure that the questions we are addressing are those which are relevant to them, the analysis is produced in a way which is understandable by them, and that we follow through and understand how they then use the results and whether the analyses are useful. So it's very much supposed to be a partnership model with public businesses, public organisations and private businesses. We will continue to seek to provide world-leading analyses in our thematic areas. We will continue to work to try to enhance the quality of data resources that others can come and use, and to build better methods for mining and achieving knowledge from these data sources. We will continue to provide access to these data collections. We'll also take on a new objective for us, which is to try to not just be the people doing the research, but to stand back from the research and to reflect with organisations on how they're able to use the analysis, to actually try to build case studies of where public bodies in particular have taken the results, what they've done with them, what the barriers have been to actually using these data and using these analyses, what change has come as a result of that. So we want to actually study the process of turning urban analytics into public benefit. And we'll carry on our mission of teaching and building capacity so that Scotland and the UK have the skills in future to make this kind of work much more common and more readily available within all the different sectors. So we're very strongly behind the Scottish Government's data-driven innovation agenda, and we hope we can play a very valuable role in that. So I think I want to end my part of this morning by making an invitation to those of you who are outside of the centre that we are looking for partners for the next stage of our journey. We're looking for more partners. We have a number of people we've been working with for many years. More than 20 organisations very kindly wrote letters of support for our bid, which made it make a huge difference in securing the funding. But we want to broaden our network still further. And there are lots of ways in which you might work with us in that next period. From very small engagements, initial engagements perhaps, we're starting a new master's programme in urban analytics to help produce the next generation of data science literate social scientists and urban analysts. They need access to data, also interesting challenges for their research projects. If you've got small challenges in your organisation which you think might suit a student project, come and talk to us. Very happy to try and find you a suitable student. Maybe you want to take one of the students on placement for a short project and see how they contribute to your organisation and give them an opportunity to learn about the applications of urban analytics in different settings. Maybe we can work together with joint PhDs. There are different models here. The traditional academic model, where the student spends most of their time with us and is co-supervised with yourselves, but there are other industrial models where the student spends more of their time working in an organisation with academic support on different projects, more of an engineering model for a PhD as well. Maybe if that's of interest, come and talk to us. We can second staff between organisations. We have lots of highly skilled analysts who might be interested in working on a particular problem in your organisation. Perhaps your staff would come and work with us and benefit from the resources and infrastructure and knowledge which our staff have. We're always interested in people who want to commission pieces of research or commission training. That's a very great opportunity for us. But maybe there are ways in which we can work together to go out jointly seeking larger research funding or possibly even industrial innovation funding. And we have a lot of teams within the university who can help advise on the opportunities there. So maybe there are challenges which we can work together on in your industry and we can help secure the funding at least to get those started. We still need data partners. Data are our bread and butter. Without them we are a little bit stuck. It's a big data centre. Much of the really interesting data remains siloed within different organisations. The public sector is making great strides to open up access to data, including through the Administrative Data Research Centre and in other ways. If you wish to share data with us, for us to do research, we think there's a good offer there. There are lots of potential benefits for you from doing so. There are benefits in terms of the work we do validating and using your data which demonstrate its power and demonstrate its value. So maybe you want to share data with us because it can enhance the reputation and the standing and profile of your data collections. Maybe you want to share data with us because together we can work on developing new products, new derived data sets, enhancing that data, again, with benefits for your business. Maybe there are ways you can share data with us so we can do research which is directly of use to your organisation. Again, we're open to all these kinds of arrangements. Come and talk to us, if you will. And lastly, as I said, we have a new objective, which is to reflect on the ways in which big data and urban analytics are generating genuine change in different organisations. We want people who are brave enough and willing to open up their organisations and their processes so we can study and share some of the learning about that. Not in a way which is coming to kind of simply throw stones, but in a way where we both try to learn what works, what kinds of analyses, what kinds of research processes and insights are actually generating useful, valuable insights for your organisation. And when can these be used, and when do they somehow fail to get taken up? What are the barriers to actually generating change from this kind of work? So if you're interested in that kind of becoming a case study, a partner in that process, letting us work alongside you in that process, again, come and talk to us. We're very interested to explore how we can work together. So that's really all I wanted to say about the centre. Enough of the kind of bombarding you with sort of summaries of what we've been doing, what we hope to do. The more important part of the day, I think, lies ahead. It's the chance to look at some of the work in detail in the workshop session and see what the particular research products are from our activities. And then the chance is to hear this afternoon from our keynote speaker and from our panel, drawing on a wide range of experiences about what the challenges are in the next stage of our journey. I hope you will enjoy the rest of the day, and I'm looking forward to exciting discussions around these things. Just before I finish, and we can break for tea and coffee, I should say that in the next session, you have hopefully you've picked your workshop and you know where you're going, but there are 4 workshop streams. Urban analytics is in this room, and the other 3 are up 1 floor on the next floor above us. So hopefully the signage is relatively clear. Please tweet away, add to our stocks of data by reflecting your views and your experiences of the day. That's the hashtag we're encouraging you to use. And thank you very much for your attention, and thank you very much for coming along this morning.